The most important team in the Big 12 this year is not one of the teams that I'm seeing being picked regularly to win the league. It's also not Texas Tech, who we were just talking about, who's eating up a lot of ink. And Texas Tech, you could make a fairly compelling case for, actually, because of the money that they're spending. And if they do go out and really upset the apple cart, make the playoff, win a game or two, something like that, like we're seeing how much they're getting under the SEC skin already. You can make a case that Texas Tech would be the most important team. I'm not going to say, though, that that's who it is. It's actually a team that many thought was going to fire its coach last year, which is a little bit crazy. So how does that happen? A lot of people, I think, would also say, well, Arizona State, John, is the most important team in the Big 12 this year because last year, you make this point all the time, John, they ditched the media poll because team being picked at the bottom of the league wins the league. That's terrible for perception of the league nationally, and it really hurt when it came to at-large time with the college football playoff. So you'd want Arizona State to win because they're up at the top. They've got the juice from last year. They've got a young, hot coach in Kenny Dillingham that everybody really likes right now. They've got a coveted quarterback who's, being ranked in the top 5 of returning quarterbacks this year across college football. He's a big name. They've got a first-round receiver. Like, these are names and stars that guys know. And you want to avoid what happened last year. So take ASU, Arizona State. But they're also starting in the top 15 in many cases. They have been ranked that highly. So the higher you start, better shot you have for leeway right. Arizona State, most important team. I understand the case that you'd be making there, but I would disagree. Arizona State might be the best team in the league. I will tell you that is who I picked to win the league. But I do not think that they are the most important team. I've even made the case that, hey, if you want to talk about most important games that the Big 12 is going to play, Oklahoma State playing in Autzen on September 6th against Oregon. In some ways, you could debate, hey, that's the team that's playing the most important game in the Big 12 because what game does the Big 12 possibly have more to gain the entire season than Oklahoma State at Oregon? That's as good as it gets. If you beat Oregon, man, what does that do for the league's perception? You go win at Autzen the year after they were the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. Like, that would be a hell of a feather in the cap for the league. And especially if it was a team that went winless in the Big 12 last year in Oklahoma State, massive credit there. Even if, a lot of that narrative would probably quickly turn to, well, Oregon must suck. Dante Moore is not it. I'm sure that's where a lot of it would go. But it would still give you a lot of credibility if that happened. But that's not the team that I'm picking either. It's a good mix of all of this, right? It's a good mix of all of this. A team that does have some star power, is getting a decent amount of juice this offseason, but most importantly, has, I think, the most consequential non-con schedule of anybody in the Big 12. And again, I want to thank Shahan Jayaraja for pointing this out. I was listening to him on the Bosco's Boys podcast. Great for K-State fans. Definitely go give it a listen. And anybody, this is a Baylor preview that Shahan Jayaraja was doing. And he mentioned this to me, like he mentioned this on the show, Baylor might be the most important team in the Big 12 because look at their non-conference schedule. Baylor played the first 2 weeks of Baylor's schedule. Are you guys aware of this? The first 2 weeks of Baylor's schedule. They play Auburn week 1, August 29th. That is at McLean. And then they go to SMU the very next week on September 6th. These are 2 teams that are both generating a lot of buzz. People, the consensus seems to be that SMU is going to be a better team this year. Kevin Jennings is back, and I think most view it as a deeper, more talented roster around him. Obviously, they have the experience of making the playoff last year. And then Auburn, scoff if you want. I understand scoffing a little bit because their season will definitely be contingent on Jackson Arnold being a good quarterback, and he did not look like that at all last year with Oklahoma. Now, he was paired up with Seth Luttrell, a now fired offensive coordinator who didn't even make it through the end of October last year. So that reason to be skeptical about how much of a chance he was really given there, but also a reason to be skeptical about, like, does this guy really have it? But Auburn's got a pretty loaded roster around him. They're number 14 in ESPN's FPI. And even if you don't like that, I'm seeing Auburn kind of a sleeper college football playoff pick from people out there because the idea is if Jackson Arnold hits, it's going to be a really good team. So that's a huge game right out of the gate. It's a huge 1-2 right out of the gate for Baylor. You knock off an SEC team that's generating a lot of hype that people think has a chance to be a dark horse contender in that league this year, and then you follow it up by winning at a playoff team last year from the ACC and SMU. Like, that's a massive chance for the Big 12 to gain some credibility through one team there in Baylor, through a team that was 2-4 at one point last year. Like, you want all this SEC hypothetical talk to continue, or do you want to start knocking it down? If you can start knocking it down with a team that last year was 2-4, ready to fire its coach, embarrassing moment that everybody saw, the Hail Mary against Colorado, victory cigar formation, all of that for Dave Aranda. People think he's done. They're going to get run out of town. Man, you can go out with that team, building off the 6 straight at the end of the regular season last year. Sawyer Robertson, hot name, shooting up top quarterback charts in college football. And by the end of the first full week in September, you've got wins in your back pocket over SMU on the road and Auburn at home. That can do a lot in building a pro Big 12 narrative. Really, no matter what Baylor does the rest of the year, because even if Baylor struggles the rest of the year, okay, well, the Big 12 is good enough to be giving a Baylor team that had that in them a rough time. I mean, that seems like a pretty nice narrative. Or if Baylor's up there fighting for an at-large bid, that's pretty damn nice too. They would not get the same treatment that, well, I say this. I don't think they would get the same treatment that BYU got last year. BYU fans have to be like screaming at their computer or phone, wherever you're watching this right now, saying, look, dude, we beat SMU on the road last year. And what happened to us when it came time to talk about at-large bids? Fair enough. And this is where I think part of the discussion here, Baylor being most important in the league, comes in the fact that they will be like a fringe top 25 team. I would bet that they'll be receiving votes in the initial AP and coaches polls that come out. They're starting higher up than BYU was when they were pinned 13th in the Big 12, and nobody really expected anything from them last year. So I think that will help. That will help. It is also a 1-2. They have the SEC opponent also there in Auburn. For those of you who are way too online and you get annoyed by the ACC stuff, the SMU stuff, there are benefits on the fringes as well of Baylor shutting up SMU. I was reading, whose tweet was it that I saw today? I was reading some SMU fans respond, and I was just like, boy, nobody should have armed SMU fans with, 1, the internet, and 2, a playoff season last year, because it got out of hand. It got out of hand. I guess Rhett Lashley is going to have the next Alabama dynasty there in DFW. Anyway, can Baylor do it? All right. So then there's the question. All right, John, that you set me up here. Maybe I'm even buying in. I see some of you in the chat, maybe not quite so much, but buying in on Baylor being maybe the most important team in the Big 12. Can they actually do it? Well, I love that the Auburn game is early. And I love that it's at home, because when we're talking about Jackson Arnold, maybe he is going to be a lot better at Auburn with Hugh Freeze and Derek Nix as opposed to working with Brent Venables and Seth Luttrell. You can definitely sell me on that. I'd be kind of hypocritical if you couldn't, because I've been very critical of Brent Venables. But I don't know if that's going to happen in game 1 in a road game at a pretty good, competent team, more than competent team in Baylor. So I like the odds there. SMU is going to be a lot tougher, man. SMU will want that game badly. Obviously, the old Southwest Conference connections there, but also just a team from the Big 12, a local team, a team that has a lot of juice. It's going to be a road game. That makes it more difficult for Baylor still toward the beginning of the year. If Baylor doesn't have the kinks worked out, it seems like a tough ask for Baylor to go 2-0 there, but I definitely think it's possible. I mean, do they have it in them? Yeah, sure. They could absolutely have it in them. And that would be a huge boost to the Big 12 this year. Huge boost. All right. Let's chat with David. If you have a super chat to submit, click the $ below the chat box. Appreciate everybody who does that. What's up, David? David says, how about TCU's non-conference schedule? North Carolina and SMU the first 3 weeks. Yes, TCU has a very tough schedule. It's why, if you go look at TCU's over-under win total, they're at 6.5. I think if they had a different non-con schedule and really Big 12 schedule in general, they would be a team. They they should be, if you were like power rating them instead of ranking them, which takes the schedule out of it, they should absolutely be in that same range of everybody else who's like 7.5. But you got to dock them because they go to North Carolina, which, I mean, they can definitely win that game. They go to North Carolina, first game of the year. It will be fascinating. That's the Labor Day game on Monday. Then they've got SMU in week 3, but then their Big 12 schedule. They're at Arizona State, at K-State. They've got Baylor at home, at West Virginia, Iowa State at home, at BYU. I mean, the road schedule there. At North Carolina, at Arizona State, at K-State, at West Virginia, at BYU. That's a hell of a road schedule. That's really tough. And then in between there, you've got SMU and Baylor and Iowa State at home. Really tough schedule on paper. Really, really tough schedule on paper. I just, the thing there, David, would just be no SEC team. So you're playing SMU, but you don't have the SEC team. And the juice doesn't quite match there. North Carolina will be big from just an eyeball standpoint because everyone will be very curious to see what's going to happen with Bill Belichick. But it won't have the same juice in terms of just impact if you get a win as it would to beat Auburn.